again. My name is Zach Boyer. I'm the Title III planner over at Coastline, and we are all here today to learn more about our upcoming FFY 26. Good morning, and 2027 request for proposal, along with why we do what we do as an agency, and the Older Americans Act largely. I'll go through with a brief presentation with the request for proposal itself, pause to answer any questions, and then expand upon some of the reporting that Title III entails, as well as some of our results from our previous needs assessment survey of 2024. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the passing of Coastline's Board of Directors President, Dr. Andrew Revelle. He passed away, and his services are being held today. So, begin with a brief moment of silence. I'm going to go ahead and get started then. So we are a area agency on aging and aging services access point. What that means for the purpose of this presentation is the area agency on aging is the federal aspect. The aging services access point, or ASAP, is the state designation. Both of those designations mean that we can come out and help out the older adults, disabled, and caregiver portions of our community with funding assistance from both the federal and state government. The Area Agency on Aging, which I'm the planning director for, is the federal portion, which is specifically helpful to know as we continue throughout this presentation. I'll be sure to highlight why that is important. And welcome to those folks who joined on Zoom. So we are accepting proposals for Title IIIB, older adults, and Title IIIE, caregivers, for a variety of programs and services such as supportive services, transportation, legal services, and caregiver services. Our public planning and service area is Acushnet, Dartmouth, Fairhaven, Cutty-Hunker, Gosnold, Marion, Mattapoisett, New Bedford, and Rochester. Not all programs that are Title III funded need to operate throughout the entirety of our service area. That being said, the more folks that you're able to serve with your intended program, the better. So this is just the contents page, legal notices, letting everyone know that we're here to do what we're doing today. So we were founded in 1977. Shortly following, we became an area agency on aging, and then subsequently in the early 90s, an aging services access point under Governor Bill Weld. The purpose of Title III of the Older Americans Act is to help older adults age within our community with the appropriate supportive services to allow them to do so with dignity. This includes, especially so, targeting of older individuals with greatest economic and social needs, as well as the non-English speakers, folks living in rural areas, paying specific attention to those with Alzheimer's, dementia, or other aging-related diseases. And the entire portion of this program is to essentially prevent those who are at risk, of losing their independence and preventing institutionalization. So funding levels, again, going back to the federal portion of my prelude, funding is contingent upon the allocation and receipt of federal Title III funding from the Massachusetts Executive Office of Aging and Independence, as well as the Administration on Community Living, which is the federal oversight or agency that previously looked over us. We are uncertain as to which reporting within the federal government will be going to specifically for Title III. So there may be some changes and amendments to our methods of reporting as time goes on. But that being said, as far as we're aware now, the Administration on Community Living will be Department for Children and Families. So I'd also be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that this past federal fiscal year, 2025, we had to split the funding allocations due to the delay in receipt of federal funding, which is a fancy way of saying if we don't have the money, we can't provide it out to those that we serve. The funding guidelines, we're really looking, simply put, for the best bang for buck to serve the largest amount of consumers possible with the funding provided within our service area. And as always, if anyone has any comments, questions, or concerns, either within this presentation or following that, for those who are watching this recording, you can always feel free to reach out to myself or Dion Gomes, the planning assistant, to help make some of this confusing stuff a little bit more intelligible. When it comes to monitoring and evaluation, we do request that, stipulate that each Title III grantee needs to submit monthly reports, which we'll give a brief overview as the presentation goes on. So back to it. The priority funding areas, we are specifically required to fund legal services. Our current legal provider is South Coastal County's Legal Services, and has been for many years. In addition, we are specifically targeting for transportation services, as that within our needs assessment survey, the most previous and those before highlight transportation as an ongoing community need. We also help to fund support groups and other healthy aging supportive services. The selection criteria is comprehensive, and the list is available at the end of the request for proposal, and the review committee is comprised of 2 members of our board of directors, 2 members of our advisory council, and 1 non-planning department staff member who's familiar with the Older Americans Act and Title III. Once we receive all of the applications following July 23rd's due date, we will then convene as a committee, review these applications, grade them, and then make funding allotments and recommendations to our board of directors and our advisory council, at which point, if they vote to approve all of those fundings, we will then contract out and begin on October 1st of 2025. I will say that this is a 1-year grant period with a continuation of another year. So if awarded, you'll likely be able to have 2 years of programming from October 1st, 2025, all the way up until 2027, give or take. So definitely excited to begin and get this ball rolling again when it comes to Title III. We do require that for those who are hosting programs and services within a physical location, that it is handicap accessible, and that folks coordinate their services with other service providers to ensure non-duplication of services provided. We also require that everyone would like to be recognized for the good that they do in the community. And as such, we ask that whenever talking about or advertising a Title III funded program, you recognize Coastline as an agency, as well as the Massachusetts Executive Office of Aging and Independence and the Federal Administration on Community Living. Going forward, we'll dive into the budget a little bit more later on, but just for the sake of in the proper order, we do require that all Title III funded programs and services are matched. For Title IIIB, that's a 15% match, and for Title IIIE, that is a 25% match, meaning that those need to be non-federal dollars in the vast majority of circumstances in order to help fund the program. And in addition, we also require that all Title III programs and services advertise and seek out voluntary contributions to the ongoing support of the program itself. So basically, if someone is receiving a service that they really love and would like to support, they have the opportunity to do so. Our planning and service area, not to be redundant, Acushnet, Dartmouth, Fairhaven, Gosnold, / Cuttyhunk, Marion, Mattapoisett, New Bedford, and Rochester. And the timeline, this was released last Monday. This reporting is on Monday, June 30th, and the applications will be due on 5 p.m. On Wednesday, July 23rd. And then the contracting will go through up until the start of the federal fiscal year 2026 on 10/1/2025. Now for the actual application. The only adjustments we've made to previous years is to insert text boxes to ensure that formatting stays nice and looks good. So we just ask for the name of the project, applicant agency, location where it's going to operate, and all of the type of information that you would expect, including the amount of funds that you're requesting, your DUNS number, number of years you've been receiving federal funding through Title III, and which communities you'll be serving. We ask for a brief description of your agency, a description of the program that you're seeking funding for, the overall community need, and we certainly encourage folks to reference our needs assessment survey, which we will present and ask for input, as it is still in its final draft form. So once we put out our upcoming area plan at the beginning of July, that will include the finalized version of our needs assessment survey data. The eligibility criteria, I will say that upon rereading some of the information on the eligibility criteria for the caregivers, I will say that within the National Family Caregiver Service Program, and since the 2020 reauthorization of the Older Americans Act, caregivers include adult family members or other informal caregivers providing care to individuals 60 years and over. Those individuals of any age providing care for someone with Alzheimer's or another related disease. Older relatives who are not parents aged 55 and older providing care to those under the age of 18. Older relatives, including parents that are ages 55 and older, providing care to adults ages 18 to 59 with disabilities. So if anyone has any questions as to whether or not your caregiver Title III program that you're thinking about applying for is applicable, you can feel free to reach out. We'll do our best to be of assistance. Going on, the program work plan and action steps, just detailing the objectives that you'll have for this one-year grant period from October 1 until September 30th, and when you're hoping to achieve those key objectives and milestones within the program. The program outcomes: in hosting a program, do you hope to eliminate or reduce the risk of social isolation, provide transportation services for medical appointments, and the number of consumers served? Stuff like that can be included in number 6. Outreach: how are you going to advertise your program to make sure those that are in need of the service are able to access it and are aware of its existence? Excuse me. Confidentiality: as with all federal funding, we require confidential and methods that ensure the confidential nature of HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, so you're protecting your consumers' information and data. Evaluation and monitoring, which we'll get to in a moment, just agreeing that we will be asking you to submit a monthly report, as well as once per each grant year, conducting an evaluation where we go to the site of your organization's Title III program and kind of watch it in action, and then ask for documents to support and ensure that you're upholding the Older Americans Act's contract, which is outlined for each of our grantees at the beginning of the contracting cycle before October 1st. Voluntary donation policy: again, voluntary donation needs to be included, and that you need to seek out voluntary donations for the program, as well as future funding, making sure that you're keeping an eye on the financial wealth and continuity of your program, despite the availability of federal funds now or in the future. Disaster preparedness: making sure that everyone that is a Title III grantee has their disaster and emergency plan. So God forbid if something happens, everyone knows what to do. We do require that all of our Title III programs have criminal background checks for any employee that directly interacts with consumers of this service. Staffing of the program, who's going to be operating the program, whether it be instructing an exercise class or driving a consumer to an appointment, as well as the necessary, if applicable, license, accreditation, etc., that supports their ability to operate this program as a staff member. And then a breakdown of the budget instructions, including personnel, travel, building space, utilities, printing supplies. If you can name it, we have thought about it. And this is kind of an actual itemized breakdown that will show how we use this information within the invoice and application process. So all Title III funding within the column, what you're seeking to get funding for, you can go ahead and put in the first column. Cash match and in-kind contributions. So cash match is any money that your organization is putting up for the actual performance of the program, whereas an in-kind is an estimated value of donated goods or services or meeting spaces that would otherwise need to have been paid for, if not for the Title III program. And then generated income, how and how much you expect to receive in donations. I will say that we typically request that each grantee shoots for no less than $100 in funds raised. But that being said, we know that due to the nature of the greatest economic and social need populations that we serve, that in many instances programs are may not receive donated funds, and you won't be penalized for that. But you do need to at least seek out those voluntary donations. And then we'll total all of those within the right-hand column and bottom column. And then we'll find out how much each organization is requesting and how much money will be there to support the program itself. And then a brief justification, including if staff time is applicable, the breakdown of the hourly rate and how that person will be reimbursed while they are performing this Title III grant, as well as in attachments, if applicable, your list of board of directors, corporate officers and principals, affirmative action plan, if applicable, most recent audit, financial statement, as well as an agency's complete budget, organizational chart, job descriptions, 501c3 certification, if applicable. I will say you do not need to be a 501c3. You can be a profit-based organization and still receive Title III funds. If you are a minority or woman-owned business, we would certainly like to know that is a focus area of the Executive Office of Aging Independence. As well as any letters of support, brochure information, any other supporting information or documents that will help us know what type of program you're hoping to host, what population you're planning to serve, and some of the outcomes and everything to do with the RFP. Now, I know that was a fair amount of information, but to close off this section, this is the evaluation criteria that is 14 questions with 1 through 4 available points on each question. And then based off of the benchmarks, we will then divvy out the available funding through both Title IIIB for older adults and Title IIIE for caregiver services based on these benchmarks, past program conformance, and in relation to the community need. So that brings us to the end of at least this portion of the presentation. And just so I'm not up here talking for at blank, I will pause and allow anyone to ask any questions before we move on. Anyone on Zoom care to chime in? See anything in the chat?
I do have a question. So I'm wearing kind of 2 hats today. And one of them is for Buzzards Bay Area Habitat for Humanity. We have a BRAMP program where we install access ramps for low-income folks. Is that something that you might consider funding?
Certainly, yeah. Home modification and home repairs is of particular focus, especially as we see older adults trying to age within their equally aging homes, and being able to maintain their ability to do so is certainly a priority.
Okay, thank you.
All right, seeing none, we'll go on to the monthly reporting. All right, so perfect. So the top section is just the name of the agency, the name of the project. Of course, those will not change. What month you're reporting, the month number in terms of the grant month. So if it is you're reporting on October, we would then ask you to put 1, who is completing the form, and what date you were submitting them. We do typically ask that folks submit by the 10th of the next month. So if you're reporting on October's data, you would then submit by September 10th. And if it falls on either a weekend or holiday, we will be sure to communicate with each of the grantees about that. Before I continue, I do see Helena, if you have a question.
Yeah, I do. So my question is, we've applied for mental health for the elders, right?
Yes.
Will we be able to do the same? I know we do the caregivers, the access advocacy for the non-English speakers, but I was wondering, is there going to be an opportunity for us to also apply for mental health? Because we do have a clinician and provides, a few hours a week for our elders who are very isolated. Are we going to be able to apply for that also, or is that something that we can't do this year?
Yes, you can certainly apply for anything behavioral health or mental health related. That is, as we will get to when we go into the needs assessment survey data and insights, that was found as a particularly high community need. Anything that reduces or prevents the likelihood of social isolation and encourages positive mental and behavioral health outcomes, we certainly appreciate that.
Would that, Zach, would that be a separate proposal?
Yes, each
Okay.
Organization needs to submit a request for proposal based on each program that they are
Yep.
hoping to offer.
Okay, thank you, Zach.
Of course. All right. So this then the next section, section 1, just a little bit about the age of the new consumers that you've served this month. And that is broken down into categories as well as the gender. And then the next section goes down to additional demographic information, both on new unduplicated and new unduplicated consumers, meaning not previously reported on within this current grant year for the greatest economic and greatest social needs, along with a cumulative for the month and year-to-date total, with some helpful definitions down bottom that describe what a unit of service, greatest economic, greatest social needs are, as well as the unduplicated client counts. Then section 3, your outreach efforts to low-income, minority, and non-English speaking consumers, and those of the greatest economic or social need. Any referrals that you either made or received, as well as a brief breakdown of the coordination and narrative report, which this first document is referred to as based on what you've done over the past month that you're reporting on. This is the financials. Let's see. So we send all of these documents out at the beginning of the grant year, and each, for at least this invoice, is broken down into month tabs. So you'll see October, November, December, and so on. And we require that each grantee fills it out within the appropriate month that they're reporting on, so that the year-to-date totals roll up into future sheets on the Excel workbooks. And each category section within that previous budget breakdown that we asked within the application will then go into each of these respective 4 categories: grant funding, cash and in-kind match, as well as income or voluntary donations with a date and signature included. And then the OAB service units, basically what services you're providing. In many instances, there are organizations that have maybe 1 or 2 that they exclusively use, specifically when it comes to, say, support groups, minor home repair and modification, etc. So those 3 documents, the narrative, the invoice, and service units, are what constitutes a monthly report. Pause there for any questions that folks might. Okay. Moving on to the budget breakdown. I did include this in my email as well as physical copies over there. This just goes to break down to the bare essentials, which individual cost is associated with which category and what makes it qualify as such. So if anyone has any questions about this, I will say that the Area Agency on Aging is required to perform what's called a technical assistance. Basically, if you need help, we're here to do it. So feel free to reach out any day or time. And then for our needs assessment survey. So again, this is a draft, and we are accepting public input. So following the end of this presentation, you can feel free to tell us anything that surprises you or anything that you thought should have been included. And we'll be sure to reference that within our area plan, which will be completed on July 7th. And then we'll be sure to include all that. So this is just the table of contents going through each breakdown of the data and insights that we got through our needs assessment survey. The forward goes over what basically the reason why we do what we do, along with the other 20 area agencies on aging in Massachusetts and over 600 throughout the country. With the assistance of the Older Americans Act and Title III funding, we're all here to help the neediest of older adults, the disabled, and caregivers in order to ensure that they are able to age at home within their communities with dignity and respect, especially as we see increased rates of institutionalization, the lack of availability of institutional settings, the overall cost. For those who are able to age at home within their communities, we've found that it is a far more cost effective for the state as well to have folks age at home within their community. We again report directly to the Executive Office of Aging and Independence, who subsequently reports to the federal government and Congress through the Administration on Community Living. This needs assessment survey was conducted throughout the fall of last year, with the data and insights being included throughout that period, including both caregivers and older adults as well. Acknowledgements, thanking people who so generously helped in our efforts. Information about the report in terms of estimates surrounding what is a need and what the needs assessment study's purpose is. The average age of our respondents were between 70 and 79. With the caveat, I will say that by 2030, the population of older adults above the age of 60 will, for the first time in our nation's history, eclipse their younger counterparts below the age of 18, which means we will have a much larger body of people who require care. With that, developing workforce who will be able to care for those individuals, whether informally as their own caregiver, family caregiver, or formally through paid positions such as licensed mental health clinicians, for example. We'll have more people who require needs and programs and services than we have able to actually accommodate them. Gender identity, which is pretty in line with the overall census data. About 61% were reported to be women. The race and ethnicity breakdown, again, pretty comparative to our overall service areas demographics, with about 81% being white. And then subsequently the Portuguese population or non-white Hispanic Latinos following shortly after that. And I will say that New Bedford is the largest and most diverse portion of our service area, as well as the highest, greatest economic and social needs as well. Languages spoken at home, and I got ahead of myself within the last slide. 86% of folks speak English at home, with 9.2%, nearly 10% speaking Portuguese, and a healthy breakdown of the other related languages on the right side pie chart. Reported characteristics, the number one reported characteristic we found was that 40% of respondents say that they live with a physical disability, with a similarly large amount of people saying that they experience memory or thinking problems, vision and hearing loss, Alzheimer's or dementia-related aging diseases, or feel socially isolated or have mental and emotional health needs. Household income, I will say the number of folks who prefer not to answer can kind of skew that data, but nearly 1 in 4 respondents said that they do live below the $20,000 benchmark for the poverty index, which just goes to show within the social determinants of health that that is directly correlated with their socioeconomic status and their total life expectancy and quality of life as they continue to age. Mass Health membership, especially with potential looming federal cuts, we know that a hefty majority of our agency's consumers and those within our service area demographics are Mass Health or Medicaid within the federal name and the state name for the same program, and that it is a very important program that we support and help those who either don't know or are not on Mass Health but might qualify, to provide them with the resources to be able to do so to better ensure their availability of a good quality of life. And for the moment we've all been waiting for, the top 10 needs. This is an aggregate of all of the reported needs and however many people checked each box. So the in-home support for independence, as well as affordable health care and leisure, recreation, and socialization, we're all within the top 3, of course, with in-home support for independence having nearly 60% of respondents. So as we're looking at our applications and requests for funding proposals, these top 10 needs, and especially the top 3, are certainly programs and services that we would like to see among our Title III service providers for 2026 and 2027. And then moving down the list, we have 39% saying access to services, transportation access, 37%, access to healthcare and affordable healthcare, I believe are a bit redundant, but do with that what you will. Nutritional supports, I will say that Title IIIC is what helps to fund our agency's Meals on Wheels program and congregate dining settings that are available at many councils on aging or within public housing facilities. We also found that learning and development opportunities, as well as long-term services and supports, were equally high needs. Yes, Martha.
I'm sorry, if this is going back a little bit. Can you use formula grant as match, or is that's excluded?
The formula grant through
State?
the state, yep, as long as it's not federally derived dollars. I do believe the community services block grants are the one exception to that stipulation. Of course. reported needs by income and some of the actual insights that we receive. So for those who reported having less than 20,000 and more than 20,000, this is the breakdown, and I know that is very small text, and I can't even read it from here. So I'll give a brief breakdown of the top three. So for the lower income respondents, we found that at a rate of 1.5 to 2 times higher of their counterparts who make more than 20,000, that affordable health care, assistance managing other expenses, and the prevention or help with social isolation as being the top three of that greatest economic need. And then for their counterparts who make more than $20,000, they require supportive services, long-term supportive services and spirituality supports at a higher rate than their lower income counterparts. The ranked needs, this is just a numerical percentage breakdown as to which respondents ranked their number 1 through 3 as their highest needs. In the top 5 caregiver needs, we had a tie at in-home care and information and resources at 67%, followed shortly by respite care, meaning time away from their duty as a caregiver to do whatever they would like to do in that free time. Transportation and legal services as well. So we certainly will appreciate applications that are able to meet any of these needs, especially the top 3, top 5, top 10. And then this is just a explainer on the needs assessment survey itself and how we got to be here today to present the information. So now I guess I'll pause for any input. Was anyone surprised with anything? We can go back to the top 10 needs if that's more helpful. Anyone surprised not to see something up there or something high up that they did not expect? Well, one thing I will say is that it was not included, technology assistance was not included in this needs assessment survey. We found that to be the number 1 need in our last needs assessment survey. Now, why that might be is likely due to the timing of it, having the needs assessment survey done in the winter of 2020. As you can imagine, there was we were still in the I guess the original pandemic when everyone was staying at home within their homes, trying to do telemedicine, or once the vaccines were available and people were able to go back out to eat again. You can't even the menu without pulling out your phone, knowing how to use a QR code. So because of that, Coastline developed a computer and technology program with the help of our instructor, Craig Perry, and now having expanded to Senior University to provide technology trainings and device distribution in the form of iPads for older adults within our service area. So because of that, we were able to fund it with the American Rescue Plan Act funds and subsequently ARPA funding derived through the Mass Broadband Institute's Digital Equity Partnerships Program. So we see that as an ongoing need, and although I was surprised that it wasn't included, I would make the logical argument that each and every one of these top 10 needs has a technology lens that can be applied to it. When it comes to healthcare, of course, being able to do telemedicine, scheduling, or even when you're signing into your doctor, knowing how to navigate that iPad intake form. Transportation access, being able to order an Uber or get directions to an airport when you're going to visit your family and friends, or nutritional supports, looking up healthy types of meals that you can make for folks. So there's a lens of technology in everything we do now, and that isn't going away. So that is my biggest takeaway, I suppose. All right, well, that kind of brings us to the end of this presentation. I'll check in the chat or if anyone on the Zoom meeting has any questions. Seeing none, I'll stop sharing my screen. And thank everyone for coming today. I believe I covered just about everything in near record time. I was expecting this would go for about an hour, but I will say some of the other commonly answered or asked questions would be, what are the typical available funding? I'd say that the average grant amount for Title III B and E ranges anywhere from $1,000 to $20,000, with again those percentage matches for Title III B being 15% and Title III E 25%. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to either myself or Dion, and we'll be able to help answer any questions. And we'll look forward to seeing everyone's completed applications due by 5 p.m. With one electronic copy sent to both myself and Dion CC by Wednesday, July 23rd at 5 p.m. So thank you very much for attending. Oh.
Quick question, how much money is available and how much of that is new? We had a question earlier on new grant application.
Yeah, so right now we have 24 Title III funded programs and services through both Title IIIB and Title IIIE. And I'll say that once you take out the funding for some of our direct service programs like technology, our money management program, that it'll likely be close to between Title IIIB and Title IIIE, approximately 600,000 over the course of those two federal fiscal years, 2026 and 2027.
And how much is that? How much of that is new money or none of it?
New money. So we actually have not received the 2026, as they call it, planning allocations. That being said, we've been issued guidance by both the ACL and AGE, which is the Executive Office of Aging and Independence, that we can operate under the assumption that we will be receiving flat funding from this previous federal fiscal year.
Because if you're applying for a new grant, you already have a grant, you're competing with yourself in essence, if there's no new funds.
So this, at the end of this federal grant year, so September 30th, all of our current Title III programs and service contracts are completed. They're done and over with. So for both new and existing programs that are Title III funded, we require a new application every 2 years. Well, thank you all for coming today. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting.
Yeah.